Luna1 with Rave and
Pseudy, I guess.
Bringing you a bi-monthly Transformers fan podcast where we geek out about Transformers comics, shows, movies, and collectibles, aka toys, whatever. We want to celebrate Transformers and the awesome fans that keep it going strong. Why we're doing this is to recognize the awesome stories and artwork by creators and appreciating the inspiration for the fans, and also the amazing work that fans do. Where we're going to be posting this is YouTube, Tumblr, and iTunes, and again, it'll be every 2 weeks. So, this is our first podcast. Spooty is actually my wife.
Yo.
And I'm kind of pushing her to do this.
Do that noise, Chrome Dome.
Already. Nervous laughter. So, let's go with I think we already went with why.
We love Transformers. We're nerds. We're Transformers nerds. We're not as nerdy as some other glorious, wonderful nerds out there, but I like to think that we're close. So that's why we want to do this. We want to do this because, for one, we want to be like, look at us, we're nerds! But also because, there's just so much great stuff out there. And I'm not content just shutting up anymore.
Yeah, it's taking over our lives. We think about it every day. We RP it sometimes.
It's terrible. It's an affliction.
It's like a disease sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We go to bed talking about it. We dream about it.
Let's not let them know that we think about Transformers in bed.
Oh my god, not that way!
Also, side note for everyone, I'm recovering from a cold, so if you hear the random quacking, that's because I think hearing coughs on air is freaking disgusting. So, moving on.
Yeah, and also before we go too deep, oh my god, okay, I'm trying my best, shut up, trying my best to keep this as possible as PG-13 and kind of N17.
Oh, not N17. No. We're not talking about porn here. So we want to keep it around like the K7, somewhat kid-friendly range, but we both have potty mouths. It's not all going to get censored out here because we're terrible.
So ignore the fact that I said N17. I live in that every day, apparently.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Shut up. Anyways, so I want to start with how we got into the Transformers fandom series, etc. I'll start actually. So it was years ago. It was when I actually moved here with my wife,
then girlfriend.
I was reconnecting with a friend named Crystal, and I don't know what the hell we were talking about, but we were going on about fandoms, I guess, and she was telling me about Transformers, and I'm not going to go into detail because she had a pretty twisted mind, and
I love it.
I didn't understand it. I thought it was really freaking weird. I thought it was really out there.
I remember you had issues considering Transformers as people.
Yes, I thought of them as machinery.
Well, just gonna go pet my toaster now.
But, yeah, she was explaining it to me, and I'm like, it's okay. It's your thing. It's not my thing, and here I am with it.
Yep, here we are, we're beyond the deep end. We're, in the damn ocean with it, and we don't even need life vests or preservers. We're so happy drowning. This is the end of us. Anyways,
a white shark.
A white shark? Why not?
Great white.
They have the nautical formers. Why not?
Okay.
Riptide will have a thing for you.
Oh my gosh, shut up.
Anyways. So, I've loved Transformers for a long time, but for many, many years in my little naive mind, I didn't recognize it as Transformers because I got into it as Beast Wars. So when I was a wee little Sooty running around and screaming about Sailor Moon and Batman, and Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
Well, we didn't have cable, so it was kind of hard to get Dragon Ball Z. Either way,
Okay.
Beast Wars would come on every weekend. I believe it was Sunday mornings. Everyone else in my family hated it, but I loved it because there were animals and I wanted to be a veterinarian. But there were also robots, and robots are cool. And so then I began to love the fact that they were animal robots doing cool animal robot things and like saving the damn universe. And it was so cool, and it was inspiring, and the rest of my entire creative life was profoundly influenced by this one cartoon. Like, in fact, I'm an artist, I animate, and Beast Wars is what made me want to take the path of art and animation. It is one of those magnificent influences of my life, and this is the least I can do to repay it. But I didn't understand it was actually Transformers for a very long time. And it wasn't until I was like neck deep in Gundam fandom stuff that I realized that. And I kind of petered off and on with it, off and on. It wasn't until after I had a death in the family in 2014 that I just needed a new fandom. Because the one I was in just reminded me of the whole incident and I just couldn't handle it. So I turned to Transformers because I saw it on my Tumblr. Thank you. You know who you are if you ever listen to this. But I saw it on my Tumblr and I thought, why not? And I got back into it and here I am. I love it more than I ever thought I could, even when I was a kid. Like, I love Transformers. In fact, I love it so much that my wonderful wife, Rave, was more than happy to go on a honeymoon at a Transformers convention.
Yeah, you're fucking damn lucky.
I am so lucky. Like, we're nerds.
Yeah, just bringing on to the fact, like, you also introduced me to the comic we're about to, like, do a synopsis of, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but, I mean, like, I was very skeptical, because it just brought that whole conversation I had with Crystal, and I was very uncertain.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's robots. What?
But it's robot people.
Yeah, well, and then, so I went along with it and just...
I had to beg her a lot to keep reading. She was like, who's this? Who's that? This guy looks like this guy. I don't get it. I was like, please, just keep reading. I need to scream to someone.
Yeah, so I'm now neck deep in it. For how long we've been in the community, has been in it.
Not in the community.
Not the community?
The community I've actually not been a huge part of because I mostly just lurk in the background.
Oh.
I lurk in the background and I watch other people in the community. I'm just like, don't mind me.
Okay, you put your toe in the pool and then you...
No, I'm like the creeper with the fucking scuba gear underneath the water while everyone else is swimming around.
Okay.
That's me.
I can believe that, actually. I guess I'm not really active in the community or aggressively in the fandom. I do some art, but I'm not going to go crazy about it. I'm not going to force myself to draw it frequently. I mean...
Yeah, there are a ton of magnificent artists out there, and Rave is a damn good artist, too, if I gotta say so myself.
Okay, you are too. Shut up.
I'm trying to talk about you. But yeah, there are so many amazing artists out there, and I can't thank them enough for making how much crazy, crazy art and putting their talents into a fandom. Like, thank you guys. Thank you. Because it's people like you who make us want to stay. It's people like you who give us more fuel until the next issue of the comic comes out, or until the next cartoon episode, or the next fandom crunch. I don't know.
Well, especially being able to squee with people about, like, episodes that come out. Mm-hmm. I mean, we don't really watch the cartoon Robots in Disguise, correct?
Yeah, we don't really watch Cartoons in Disguise, mainly because it pisses me off. But
okay. Nonetheless.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. We've seen, like, especially when Prime was coming out, or, like, was finishing out, and people were just, like...
Transformers Prime.
Yes. Sorry. They like seeing the fan art and the fan fiction. Amazing. Absolutely love it. Got really addicted to it. I would totally recommend some if I read PG-13 ones. But
Here
anyway,
comes that NC-17.
yeah, there we go. I am not. I don't censor very well, so I apologize again.
That's why we have editing.
Exactly. So, moving on. So we also want to do suggestions of comics or series. I guess that would be the same thing. Shows of people who want to get into it, because I see a lot of people going up to famous artists or writers and asking these questions, and it's really hard to come up with these things because you can. I wouldn't say you can start anywhere, but I guess if you want like a recommendation, I know me and my wife started at More Than Meets the Eye. I know some people actually went further down the road. And when we did go into robots, or not robots in disguise, sorry, More Than Meets the Eye, we had to backtrack a lot because there's a lot of character development that we didn't know of, right?
Yeah. So we didn't understand a whole hell of a lot that was going on in the comics. And maybe you've run across this when you started reading More Than Meets the Eye if you weren't a Transformers fan in beforehand. Or like if you maybe were in a different type of fandom, because of course this is across movies, cartoons, comics, toys, video games, and there's a lot of Transformers universes that are all canon out there. And if you didn't come from something that was linear with the IDW verse, which is the publishing company that makes the current run of the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye, the Lost Light, the Transformers, All Hail Optimus Prime, etc., etc. So if you're not familiar with the IDW run, it's really hard to figure out where to start because the comic tends to just jump right in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if you were to start reading the comics, I would recommend More Than Meets the Eye and trying to just stick with it until you can figure out who's who and what names are what. Because I remember, again, when I first introduced More Than Meets the Eye to Rave here, she looked at me and just gave me this face, and I was like, what? I like this mini-bot named Tailgate, and I really like the development between him and Cyclonus. And she just kept staring at me, completely deadpan. And then slowly said, Tailgate. His name is Tailgate.
I remember
as
that.
in the truck. I was like, yeah, honey, Tailgate as in the truck. But if you can get past any of that, you can get into it.
I'm not gonna lie, there's some weird names that throw me for a loop.
Ultra Magnus still sounds like a condom name to me, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, he does. I think the one I get kind of like Trailbreaker. We'll introduce him later, but Trailbreaker.
Trailbreaker!
Oh my god! And there's Riptide.
Yeah.
Getaway. I mean, that's not really a name. That's more of get away now, get away. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of names, but like stick with it. It's gonna be a fun ride. You're basically going on this massive arc with them, and you'll come to learn like their history, and you'll love characters, and you'll hate characters, and
you'll hate a lot of them.
Oh my god, you will. But I mean, it's gonna, like I said, and repeating, it's gonna be so worth it at the end. It's gonna be such a great story that, especially that with James Roberts, he's a very fantastic writer.
It's a really, really fun ride.
Mm-hmm.
It might be confusing as hell for a while and be like, why am I reading this again? What relevance does this have to the overall plot? And that stuff used to annoy the hell out of me. Not as much anymore, mainly because I've gotten the hang of his writing. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if, like, being drip-fed information isn't your thing, then the comics might not be for you. If you'd rather watch something instead, I totally get it. I'm right there with you when I don't have the time to sit down and read. Transformers Prime, I think, is a great place to start for watching something. It takes the time to introduce a bunch of characters, and Ignore the humans for as much as you can. Most of them are. I have possibly unpopular opinions on many of them. All of them.
Yeah.
Every single one. Anyways, if you can get past the humans, then Transformers Prime is phenomenal. Like, I totally 100% recommend it. I sat down all my coworkers to watch this, in fact. So, where I used to work, we had a TV running in the background that would play things.
That's
I brought
right.
in my whole set, and we played it on loop for 3 weeks. They are now familiar with Transformers Prime.
Well, I mean, like, she works at a art college university, actually. Sorry, wrong term. And I actually attend to it now. And I don't know. To me, it's just completely freaking fascinating to watch that because the first couple episodes, the animation isn't great, but
The really fast running bulkhead.
But like, again, stick with it. It is really awesome. You can tell when their budget kicks in and they really like show the amazing animation of it.
The story's phenomenal too.
Oh God,
Again, once you
yes.
get past the humans and uselessness, frequent, incorrigible uselessness.
They're there for comedy relief, I guess.
They're there because they were trying to tie in aliens to a human element. They were trying to give a human element because, like you were at one point, Transformers were just quote unquote robots. And that's what a lot of people are going to look at Transformers Prime and be like, why are you watching a show about robots? But if you shove some kids in it, then kids are going to be like, I relate to this kid. And then they'll be like, I like these robots because it just gives it that human element.
True enough,
And
actually.
that's like why the live action movies keep shoving in humans and more humans than robots because they're trying to be
and
like
sexy babes.
Not even. They're not even sexy. Most of them are not. Most of them are just tramps. But that's a Michael Bay issue, not an actress issue. I'm not blaming the actresses. That's a director thing.
No, okay, I agree that, but the actress that I'm talking about, I would have preferred her not to wear as scantily clothing. I do think she's very attractive, though. But again, Michael Bay. Especially if you're being introduced to Michael Bay.
That's a whole other shitstorm.
That one, a lot of the fandom, it's like a ginger child.
It's the continuity we don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
Unless it's in reference to very, very specific things.
Exactly.
Mainly, Michael Bay just took something that so many people love and made a completely different story, more or less, with it. And it's not the story that a lot of Transformers fans were familiar with. And it didn't focus on the Transformers the way we expected it to. So I mean, like, if live action is your thing, go for it. I mean, I like explosions. I like explosions and I like action scenes. So like, I can sit back with popcorn and still watch those movies. I'll cringe and cry inside, but I can still sit back and watch them.
And the pretty cars. You
And
can't
the
forget
cars.
it. You can't forget about those.
Pretty cars.
Yeah, we're also car fanatics. There's a lot of brand.
My dad used to drag race, and so I have loved cars for like my entire life. Usually the old muscle cars is what I'm into. But now I know the glory of sweet, sleek speedsters. Yes!
Yes.
Gonna go mouth breathe on some cars. I'm sure people will love that.
We already do in public. That's unfortunate.
We try not to.
Okay, so...
Look, don't touch. Just get very, very close to touching. Maybe pose and post it on Facebook, but...
Yeah, that's like the closest. But, so we're gonna do a rundown on the first issue. We're gonna try our best to avoid a lot of spoilers, especially if you're coming onto this podcast to listen and learn. And we just don't want it to spoil for you. We want you to actually like get absorbed in it and be like, yeah, I want to go freaking read this, and like maybe draw fan art or whatever. I mean, this is what we're here for. We're trying to but so avoiding that. Let's talk about the first issue, though, with the artists, the writers, colors, letters, and editor for the first issue of What is it called? First, More Than Meets the Eye?
It's just the first volume.
Volume, okay.
So the first volume, because I bought all the comics in the big-ass volumes, and I have some digitally, but c'est la vie. So the first volume is what we're looking at right now. We're going to try to tackle this on a volume-by-volume basis. So that way we're not spending 30 episodes talking about one comic series. And we might jump around as we move forward. We might do more than a couple issues. But since we've rambled quite a bit already, then we'll just cover the first 3 issues, i.e. the first volume, today. And it'll just be like a super quick synopsis. We're not trying to do any sort of spoilers, can't promise anything. Do what we can here. But first I want to talk about some of the creators of it. So, as I'm sure you may have heard, James Roberts is the author. He does a really fun job. I mean, some people love him, some people hate him, to each their own. I love the way he tells stories, personally. But I'm just looking it up on tfwiki.net here. So James Roberts is a British writer and Transformers fan. Surprise! And he wrote an absolutely massive unofficial novel called Eugenesis back in 2001. And so either way, he started working on Transformers more as like a sounding board and for Nick Roche, especially with Last Stand of the Wreckers.
Awesome.
Oh my god, Last Stand is so good. We'll have to do like an entire podcast just for Last Stand of the Wreckers, because I'm not going to cry outside, but inside I'm going to be sobbing terribly.
Yes.
Terribly. Last Stand of the Wreckers, guys. Anyways, yeah, he just kept writing, and he was the main writer for More Than Meets the Eye. He tends to do a lot of world building, drip feeding of the character details and backstory. And let's see here. He has cheerfully admitted that he likes building up a character history in a non-sequential order, so you fill in the blanks. And yeah, that's his stuff. I know he tends to do a lot of death scares, like, oh no, the character is dead! Just kidding. Just kidding! And personally, I think that's really annoying. Like, I could totally do without that. That is so damn annoying.
It gets me nervous.
Well, that's the point. It's supposed to keep you on the edge of your seat. And maybe it's just from my perspective I think it's annoying. But overall, I still love his world building. And a lot of the criticisms I have about some of the character developments, I don't believe were his choice. Megatron. Anyways, moving on. So the first volume has a couple different artists. The first issue was by Nick Roche, and the second issue was by Alex Milne. So let's just bring up, oh, my tab for Nick Roche disappeared. Well, Nick Roche is amazing. He's been working on Transformers stuff for a long time. He drew Last Stand of the Wreckers, so therefore I am forever in love with him. And
we got to see him at the con.
I got to see him at the con, and I may have wet myself a little. I may have not. You never know. Especially not when you have Depends. Oh, just saying. But he's fantastic. I love his work.
All right, color then.
Yeah. So going on to Alex Milne now.
Oh, okay. You want to go that way?
He did the line work for most of the More Than Meets the Eye series. Yeah, and so like the general More Than Meets the Eye style is primarily attributed to him. So let's see. He's Canadian and fantastic, and I mouth breathe over his line work all day long. Like, I could drown myself in his line work and still never be happy. Because his art is so damn good.
I mean, the details on that.
The details, his drafting expertise, his line work. And just like his perspectives and his designs. And there's just so much love in it. There's love in that. Because you don't just draw lines because you like drawing lines. That is like genuine thought put into all the structures. And I'm in love with his work. He worked for Dreamwave right before they went under. It was picked up by IDW along with the rest of the Transformers goodness. And he's been like forging all of this magnificent content ever since. He's fantastic. I can never, ever, ever thank him enough because Thank you, Alex Bill.
And we got to see him at the con too.
I got to see him at the con too.
He was a little awkward potato.
Well, most artists are awkward potatoes. Look at us. Look at us. Awkward potatoes behind a mic talking about giant robots.
You know, my self-esteem just dropped.
You're welcome.
I hate you.
You're fine. All right, so Josh Burcham, looking up his TF Wiki, he did the colors on a lot of issues. Specifically, he did the colors for all of Volume 1, which is what we're talking about today, so again, focusing on that. He's an American comic book artist, currently working for IDW, and admits that he is super awesome, so says his TF Wiki page. Alright. So, Sean Lee, I just want to talk about letterers for a moment, because I love letterers. I can't do that shit. Crap. I can't do that crap. But, so I can't do that. That is phenomenal. And looking up his thing, he's a comic book letterer based in California, so United States. Gained BFAs, that's plural, thank you, in drawing and graphic design from Eastern Michigan University. He works with IDW Publishing and has freelance illustration. And he was married in October 2011. Congratulations, Sean Lee, even though it's like 6 years later.
Good job.
I can count. And also, just as a note, Sean Lee's art is really fun. I checked out his blog, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly...
It made me happy.
Yeah, it was fun. I do like his style. Something I'll never be able to reach. But going back to letters, I actually had my wife explain to me that's actually a job. I thought artists had to make their own speech bubbles, and... I was wrong. I think I was getting it confused with people who were making their own comic, like web comic. Like there's I don't know.
Like independent comic authors and creators.
So that's like a whole nother job, and kudos to them to figuring out like pacing and speech bubbles. I would never be able to do it either.
I tend to do giant blocks of text if I'm left to my own devices, and that's why no one should ever trust me with letters.
You know who does good at letters? Our friend Amanda.
Because she's amazing.
She is.
If only she loved Transformers like we do.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to John Barber, who is the editor for Volume 1. And I'm pretty sure he was the editor for the entirety of More Than Meets the Eye. Because very recently, he stepped down from his senior editing position to focus on other writing for IDW. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's been working with IDW for a long time. Worked with Marvel. So you're looking at his TF Wiki here, too. Currently the author of the ongoing comic titled The Transformers Robots in Disguise. I think that might be the one based off the cartoon. I'll have to look into that, because I don't know off the top of my head. And he was also the editor of the Robots in Disguise comic. That's not based on the cartoon.
The X?
Yeah, now it's no longer called Robots in Disguise. That it was then called the Transformers, and it had more name changes than prints. So
that got really confusing.
So I'm still a little bit confused on that. I'm sure there's a totally reasonable explanation, and probably something really logical. But I am neither logical nor reasonable, so...
Moving on.
I think that's it for the creators right now.
Yeah, so the first volume, pages. Well,
okay, so
yeah.
The first issue starts off, the whole More Than Meets the Eye plot line, essentially. The world has gone to shit. The war is over. And Rodimus, formerly known as Hot Rod, is trying to gather up mechs to be like, let's go into space to find the Knights of Cybertron and save our planet.
And the complete 90s voice, too. Sorry.
Yeah, in a super 90s voice that I can't do. But, he dresses like an 80s rocker.
So. I love him, nonetheless.
He is still my favorite shit child.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So, he's gathering up all these mechs, and they go for a waltz in space. So that's pretty much the first issue. There's some points, though, that we definitely wanted to just bring up real quick. So... a lot of this issue, jumping into it, is kind of tough, just because if you're not, again, familiar with the backstories or with at least minimally the character names and the way they look, it's going to be a bit of a rocky ride figuring out who the hell is who. Because I remember I had to keep a little cheat sheet of like, this is the guy with the smokestacks who's blue. This is the guy with the cat ears and the swords, and he's white and red, and so on and so forth. I had like a little cheat sheet for me myself when I was reading, but I'm also neurotic that way. So do whatever you need to do, figure out who they are. It might be a little rocky, but it's worth it if you can. If you need to, you can go back and read the previous The Transformers by IDW that happened like right before this. There was a couple story arcs that led up to this event.
Yeah, I think like the last issue was 32-ish, maybe 35. I have no idea.
Bernie something indiscriminate number.
Yeah,
I have to look it up.
No, it's totally fine. Not only that Rodimus is trying to recruit all these mechs to find the Knights of Cybertron, of course you're going to have the people who don't want anybody to leave, aka Bumblebee.
Bumblebird.
Yeah, God. So, I mean, he doesn't want anybody to go. He wants people to stay, I think, to reform and rebuild together.
Yeah, and that's more of what the Robots in Disguise, formerly known as Robots in Disguise Transformers comic was about, is the group of mechs who stayed on Cybertron. I loved that series, but it got really, really wordy for me at times. And so it was something I had to do in small bites. Otherwise, I'd get bored. I would get bored. And I love the art still. I still loved the art, but Alex Milne's art will still always be my favorite Transformers art. Everything is so good!
So gorgeous. So beautiful. There are a few major points that I honestly didn't realize this. I actually had to go back and look at the stuff, look at the pages, and it makes me kind of sad. I honestly thought that was a fucking flashlight. Excuse my language.
Can you say excuse your language to
yes,
I
did. Shut up. Anyways, so should we even bother bringing up a Cyclonus?
I don't really think so, because we wrote down on our notes Cyclonus and his ID chip. I think that was more in reference to the whole. There are several things in the opening comic that are brought up again that reference the previous storylines, and the fact that Cyclonus doesn't have an ID chip and that he's free is one of them. And yeah, it kind of mentions that. It says, like, go back and read this comic. Yeah, I wrote it down, but I don't think we really need it. I just already talked about it, so.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's before we get too deep here. I actually really like that they actually have little boxes on the corner of the page of the box,
panel, yeah.
the panel. If they're talking about something and they're referencing to something in the past, it will actually recommend you to read the issue, like, page.
Or to, like, define it for you.
Yeah, it'll define you. And, like, it's really awesome. I mean, like, who has time to go back and forth that many times?
Apparently I did.
You made it a goal.
Because I needed to know.
Yeah, you're the kind of person that needed to know. Anyways, so this big important scene, I didn't even think about this, is Whirl. He's the blue mech, singular optic, chicken legs, claws for his servos. That's actually another term for hands. Optic is another term for eyes. And his peds, of course, are for feet. But he is going on this rant, and God, the perspective on this page is phenomenal to me. And
I think Roche did this one.
Yeah,
Roche did do this one for sure.
Well, he's standing in this puddle, and you see these gas tanks everywhere, and he's holding a light, and I don't know if it comes clear. At the time that I read it, it didn't come clear. I didn't think of it, but he's actually going to commit suicide.
It goes a lot deeper than just what's on the page.
Yeah.
So what's on the page is, in the dialogue that he's monologuing, he's making it clear that he was kicked out of his old boy band, the Wreckers. And he's doing something bad, basically. He has a whole ton of empty fuel cans on the floor, lots of fuel everywhere, standing straight in a puddle of it, and he's got a lit flare in his hand. Claw.
Thank you.
And in a way, the way he's talking about The dialogue sounds like he's saying goodbye to somebody, and in the next page, you find out he's actually like desecrating corpses. So when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's who he was talking to. He was talking to the corpses. I still did not pick up on the first read through that he was going to blow himself up with those corpses. I didn't catch that. But it's one of those things that have to do with the way the art and the script work in this series is so intermingled that you can go back and reread and you'll find something new every time. Like, I know I did.
Yeah.
And this is just one of those things that I picked up on a future read through and blew me out of the water.
I don't know, like, it really, I don't know, it gives you, like, to me, it gave me feelings. Like, I don't know how to explain it because I have a hard time explaining my emotions, but I mean, to me, it was just like, oh, that's low. That's like depression. I'm guessing he's depressed.
It
I
made him
mean,
relatable.
yeah, I could relate to him, and I mean, that's why he's such an amazing character. He's so funny too, and later stuff. But yeah, that just looking at that panel and the perspective of it, and just all of it is phenomenal. So going on to, oh well, I mean,
And sorry,
so
again, like with the way that the comic is written and everything too, the end of the first issue has a pretty obvious like hail to what's going to happen, like humongous foreshadowing. We all know it's coming. It's very obvious, but it doesn't even get brought up again, pretty much until Volume 7, I believe, issue 38, the Elegant Chaos Part 3 storyline. So that's how many volumes later, how many issues later? But this is already being set up for that. And this is just it's just one of those ways that I love for world building and how everything is going to come together in some way, shape, or form. And it makes me wonder if I've reread this again another 10 issues later, what else am I going to find? You know? I'm going to find more Easter eggs somewhere, somehow.
yeah, James is known to drop little things in the story, like it'll be put there, and then you'll kind of move on. You're like, but what about this thing? And you won't find out until a couple issues down the line. And not even a couple issues. You find it later. And you're like, and you don't remember it. I know, hell's I didn't remember it.
You won't always notice you've solved the problem or solved the mystery until you look back. You won't always notice that.
Yep. So going on to issue 2, More Than Meets the Eye. Same author, artist, color.
Well, different artists. The artist for issue 2 was actually Alex Milne. Sorry, I couldn't talk for a second there.
You have a cough drop in your.
I do have a cough drop in my mouth, so that way I'm not hacking all over the mic.
Sorry, my pardon. The art is Alex Milne. I hope he doesn't hear this and be like, those people don't.
Or if he does hear it, I hope he gives me a virtual hug because I would love him even more than I already love him. I would take a hug. I would take a high five.
I'm never washing this hand again.
I'm never washing this hand again.
Oh, so sorry about that. It's Alex Milne as the art and lines. So this is a first page, correct?
First, second page. Sorry, I have the comic pulled up on another computer. It's a slow computer. It might take me a few minutes to flip a page, but it'll get there. It'll get there one way or another. All right, so this one opens up with the fallout from the last episode. Something bad happened, and now the Lost Light is like, oh, now we have to touch down on this planet and find rescue people and do stuff.
Yeah, they were like jetted outside of space.
Well, yeah, there was a breach in the hull. So when they tried to do their little space jumpy thing, something went wrong, and they ended up space jumping to the wrong place. And the huge explosion happened. There was a hole in the side of their ship, and a lot of, mechs got sucked out like a damn vacuum.
Poor
space
things.
Vacuum. And crash landed on a planet. Well, the people crash landed on the planet. I believe the ship, the Lost Light, did not crash per se. Probably landed in a haste, but did not crash.
Yeah, so it actually introduces a character that you see in the last issue, right?
Yeah.
What's his name? Or kind of embedded into this engine.
Yeah, so the reason the engine malfunctioned during their little quantum jump bolt is because Orr somehow got sucked into it. And now he's dead because he's embedded in an engine. He dead.
He did good. So then it introduces another character after all that stuff, and I think everybody loves Skids. It like introduces a good character and what he.
But his damn feet!
My wife hates his feet.
Okay, small sidetrack about Skid's feet. A long time ago, I remember seeing this post on Tumblr where someone had photoshopped Crocs onto Skid's feet, like the shoe. You know the shoe I'm talking about, right? The ugly clog silicone rubber shoe with holes in the tops. Yeah, that's what his feet remind me of. And his feet will always remind me of that. He has the Croc clog feet in my head. And I love him. Aside from his feet. Yes! Especially because his tire is his heel. That means whenever he walks around, his rubber, rubbing against the metal floor, probably sounds like he's farting with every step. I'm just saying.
Good thing they don't put that in there, because that would be really awkward. Squeak, squeak, squeak.
Well, I'm a mature adult.
It's okay. We're all here. That's a good introduction, especially for Skids, who's never been on the Lost Light. Sorry, and he actually gets this introduction about things that.
So the reader is introduced to him in a more natural way to me. It might seem very abrupt because, again, his ship just comes out of space, just teleports, whatever. And he's just suddenly there and doing things. But the introduction to his actual character self, not just his appearance or what he's doing, like, that is a gradual thing. You get introduced to him along with the other characters. They get introduced to him the same time you do. And I love that about it, because it's one of those instances where you weren't just thrown into it being like, oh, everyone knows you and knows exactly what you do and exactly who you are and exactly why everything is about you. And no one knows this about Skids. And I loved that, because I could be like, yes, I can understand you, robot guy, who I've never seen before, with your croc feet.
Nonetheless, he's still a cutie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a damn cutie.
He's a very cutie. And it also introduces the legislators.
Yeah, legislators. So again, one of those things that'll come back issues later. The things that Skids is confronting, those will come up again, and I love that too. I also love their designs, and I want like 12 of them.
Yeah, 1984 was it?
1984, I think. Yeah, yes. 1984.
They don't say much.
That's okay. They don't need to. They can just stand in the corner and look pretty.
Exactly. Oh. So.
Oh, yeah, a couple of the characters did die already, but it's okay, because you barely even got their names. And you only see them in, like, 2 panels of the whole thing.
Exactly. I think you get introduced to Tailgate a lot more now.
Yep, you get introduced to Tailgate more, which is great. Again, one of those things where you get introduced to him at the same time that he gets introduced to all the other characters.
Yeah, so he's going to be your little marshmallow pal.
Oh, marshmallow pal!
Yeah, so, I mean, he's naive. He doesn't know the world very much.
As it is now, because apparently he's been asleep for 6 million years. Surprise!
Exactly.
So we won't go too much into him, though, yet.
No, I'm going to try to avoid much story arc, because you grow with him, and that's a treat.
I found myself rooting for him in different ways. Like, I wanted him to, like, acclimate to this new world after being asleep for 6 million years. And as he developed, I wanted my goals for him, what I wanted to see out of him, developed as well. I just wanted to see his goals come to fruition. And I love Tailgate so much. He is an extremely flawed character, and I adore that.
Exactly.
I love flaws.
I love flawed characters. A lot, actually. I like them having the problems. So, this is something that I wasn't even aware of. I don't know if it went down to other issues before More Than Meets the Eye started existing, but there comes a scene where Skids is thrown, and he comes across Chrome Dome, Rewind, and Swerve and Tailgate. And he basically just Chrome Dome, Claw, and Skids is, or Chrome Dome's like trying to remember Skids. That Claw is actually an inhibitor. Like, it prevents him from transforming.
Yeah, and I didn't get that the first time. That's one of those things I do wish they had put a little notation box, be like, this is what an inhibitor claw is. But I didn't see that, and that confused the hell out of me for a long time. So just a heads up, if you're new to the series and you don't know what an inhibitor claw is, or what's going to be referenced as a claw, it's a little device that goes apparently on their back, and it just prevents their T-cog from allowing them to transform. Their T-cog is a transformation cog, and turns them into cars!
Or whatever. Or
toasters!
Or an ornament. Yeah, I kind of wish they did that, because I honestly wasn't aware of that thing, and they don't even explain it later.
Nope, they don't. I've never seen it explained before or since, but after I figured out what it was, I got the hang of it.
Yeah, I think, like, in the fandom, we tend to make up our own vocabulary.
Which I love about the fandom. Thank you again, fandom.
Yeah, because there's a lot of terms I would have never guessed. Okay. This is issue 3.
Nope, this is still issue 2, so basically the issue ends up with a shock surprise. There's a spark eater on board and someone's dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
Now moving on to issue 3. And it's opening and it's scrolling.
So the first page, there's already something going on. Okay, that was really stupid to put. Of course there's something going on, but there's something more going on.
There's a deepening of the plot, because in the past 2 issues, for me, I was just like, what is this about? I thought they were going to go hang out with the Knights of Cybertron. Instead, they're just stuck on a ship, and everyone's falling out and dying, and now there's, like, giant robots, and words I don't know, and, get off my lawn, I don't understand, go away.
Yeah.
But this actually intrigued me, because it started introducing subplots that it actually just kept me hooked, because it made me want to keep reading it. So the first page opens with Shock, I believe. Yeah, Shock. Looking at his dead friend stuck in an engine, who is Orr. And he's like, oh, you're dead. That's sad. I'm sad. But let me go ahead and erase your calls.
And
cover your tracks.
Yeah, you find
and try to finish the job that you died doing.
Yeah, and when you're looking at it, it's Prowl and his smug face, his pretty smug face.
His handsome, smug asshole face.
But yeah, it's like the plot thickens.
The plot thickens, and then Shock is unceremoniously murdered by a monster.
Oh,
is it murder if it's a monster? Does murder have to be like an intentional, or is it like?
Okay, to me, it seems more of like an instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Always hungry.
Num-nums.
Yeah, gotta have the num-nums.
Because basically the monster is a spark eater that's like robot equivalent of a zombie. So they're being chased by a robot zombie now.
And let me just hold back, like, let's rewind slightly, because Sparks, that's one. Didn't know what the frick that was.
Thank you, Beast Wars!
Yes, thank you, Beast Wars. So, Sparks, every Cybertronian has one, and it is like the equivalent of their soul, right?
/ heart.
Heart. So, if anything happens to that, they automatically die. Or they're severely injured and they die slowly. Mm-hmm.
Severe spark damage usually means they ain't coming back. Unless, of course, they're Optimus or Megatron, and then you can kill them as many times as you want. They're still going to come back because it's Optimus and Megatron.
It's Robo-Jesus.
Robo-Jesus!
Exactly. So, like, that's what the Spark Eater, hence the name, is actually eating and devouring. It's in his torso of all the sparks he's consumed. And, I don't know, that's something that I would have figured out that would have been a good thing to do, or, like, explain, because I didn't know what the hell that was, but I just knew it did kill him.
It killed him pretty hard.
His eyes are bulging out.
Yes, I think his optics shattered. So, anyways, just gonna kind of rush through this issue just because I don't want to. You've already been listening to me for almost an hour. I don't think you want to listen to me much longer. So, the creative lineup is the same for this one as was for number 2. It was James Roberts, Alex Milne, Josh Burcham, Sean Lee, and John Barber. So they in this issue they establish Chrome Dome's abilities, Tailgate and Cyclonus's relationship, and how like that's going to be panning out their interactions, and Swerve's bar. And it also hinted at like pointed some fingers at some certain people, namely Prowl. But there's also like some foreshadowings for some other mechs, particularly Brainstorm, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone's chased around by a Spark Eater, and they fight the Spark Eater and destroy it, and yeah.
That was pretty quick, but yes, they do destroy it, and there is more established with Brainstorm's briefcase. And we don't know at this moment.
I didn't notice it on my first run through, but it was one of those things that came back later. I'm like, oh, briefcase. Briefcase.
Yeah, it was
more on that another time.
Yeah, he was like married to that thing. But yeah, it was. I don't really think terribly much about it when I did my first run through. I think I was getting more frustrated. Or I'm sorry.
By quack.
Yeah.
Sudi.
Sudi,
yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. Rave.
Thank you. I was about to quit. A lot. I didn't want to keep going, but my wife convinced me to stay, and so I did, and I get it now.
All the better for it.
Yeah. So.
I think this pretty much wraps up our first podcast here.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. If you guys have any suggestions, questions, we are willing to also promote fanfic writers. And artists. So if you have anyone that you want to get promoted, or
I hesitate to even say promotion. It's more like if you find a really amazing fanfic or piece of work, shoot it our way. We want to read that stuff. We want to look at that stuff. We want to oogle over it, and we want to thank whoever the hell took the time and dedication to make that and who is generous enough to share it with us. So if you know awesome stuff, go ahead and shoot it our way. Please, by all means. Because I've got a list of my own, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, not exactly a promotion, more like a recognition and support. I mean, they need to be recognized.
We're all in this together. We're all fans. You're listening to this because I assume you're a fan. Either that or you really have nothing better to do. But maybe you're both.
Yeah.
Fan with nothing better to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, give us a thumbs up. And if you like it, we'll continue doing it. And
like, share, listen in, tune in.
Yeah, get your friends in. So this is Luna1 with Rave
and Pseudy.
And we'll see you guys another time.
Signing off.